everybody, Rachel Mikulov here from Empire Tax Professionals. Today wants to just share a quick live video helping business owners and giving them a ton of value and letting them know what the most common mistakes that business owners make. So if you're watching me live, comment below and let me know that you're watching so other people could also watch it. So key mistake number one that most business owners make is entity selection. So I spoke to a few clients earlier today who did not have the proper entity set up. They don't know what entity to choose. They don't know, what entity they should be and why. And then they just hire either a company on LegalZoom or they hire other online companies. And I don't recommend hiring or just working with an online company because most of the time business owners don't know what entity they should be. They need the guidance and they need somebody to help them and let them know what entity they should be. So that's, a common mistake. If you're a sole proprietor and you're making, a net of $20,000 annually or even $10,000 annually, you do not want to be a sole proprietor because you're not protected. If you're a sole proprietor, you're also paying more taxes. And again, you're not protected. Your personal assets is at stake and anybody could come after what you personally own. So I don't recommend ever being a sole proprietor. And also the other entity is a single member LLC. I speak to so many business owners who are single member LLCs and they think that's the best entity because their attorneys told them that, a single member LLC is the best entity. I don't recommend hiring a single member. I don't recommend, creating a single member LLC because you pay the most taxes when you're a single member LLC. And a lot of business owners don't know that. They think that a single member LLC is the best entity. I spoke to somebody earlier today who's at, $600,000 annually. And he said that he's a single member LLC right now. And I don't recommend it. You're gonna, especially for Amazon sellers, if you're an Amazon seller and you're a single member LLC, you have a much higher risk of being audited. So lesson learned, if you're a single member LLC, make sure that's the right entity for you because most of the time it may not be. And you probably did not even speak to an accountant and you decided on your own that you need to be a single member LLC, which again is what I don't recommend. The next mistake that we see is companies that don't have, bookkeeping, payroll, sales tax, corporate returns, individual returns under one umbrella. And when I speak to business owners for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, they think they have it right. And when I speak to them, they actually realize that they don't have it right because they don't know the information that they need in order for them to make a proper decision. So I spoke to somebody earlier today who's at, $500,000 annually. And I said, okay, what do you need help with? He said, I just need help to get my taxes done. My 2018 taxes, that's what I need help with. And I said, okay, what about your bookkeeping? Because if you're a business owner making $500,000, you want to make sure that you have your bookkeeping set up. So he says, oh, I have a bookkeeping company. They do all my bookkeeping for me. And I said, okay, great. So, you just want me to prepare your taxes? He goes, yeah, I just want you to help me with my taxes. So I guess I tell him, did you make any estimated tax payments all year round? He goes, no, that's my biggest issue. That's my biggest problem right now. That he owes $75,000 from last year, and this year he's gonna owe another $75,000 to $100,000 this year. So I said, are you getting, so I said, what exactly are you having with your bookkeeping company? Are they giving you any bookkeeping advice to tell you how much taxes you need to pay? He goes, no, they just do the data entry. They send him the profit and loss reports. He's able to make the decisions based on the profit and loss reports, and that's about it. That's all they do. So they really do like a data entry job. They do a robotic job. They're really like entering transactions into QuickBooks, but there's no really advice. There's no business advice, and that's what business owners really need. They don't need a robot entering the transactions. They need a business advisor to assist them when looking at the P&L and giving them the proper action steps of what they need to do is what business owners really need. So back to that client, I said, you're really happy with the bookkeeper, but look, because of your bookkeepers, you owe $50,000 to $75,000 in taxes because they did not advise you and they did not say, hey, let's say the client name is Mike, because we keep everything confidential and we never, let people know. I never share any information, even the numbers may be, changed just because of confidential rules. But let's say I say, hey, Mike, your profit and loss shows this much, but your net is $20,000. Do you know that you need to pay X, $3,000 or $2,000 in estimated tax payments? And they never gave him that advice. So because of that, he owes $50,000 to $75,000 in taxes at the end of the year. Now, one of the biggest pain points that business owners have is nobody wants to have a surprise tax bill, right? Nobody wants us to prepare their return and say, hey, Mike, you owe $40,000 at the end of the year. Even if you have $100,000 in your bank account, nobody wants that surprise. You want to know that you're always compliant, you're paying the proper taxes, and let's say in that situation, you would be paying $10,000 every single quarter versus $40K at the end of the year. I personally think that a bookkeeping company is completely useless if they just give you the P&L and they don't look at it from a financial standpoint. For example, when we send clients a profit and loss report, we look at it every single month and sometimes every quarter, depending on how much money they're making, right? We look at it and say, okay, the client made $100,000. How much payroll does the client need to pay? What entity is the client? Is the client a single member LLC? Should we convert him to an S Corp? How much payroll does he need to pay himself? What is the net? How much does he need to pay in taxes so he does not have a large surprise tax bill at the end of the year? That is what we do. We help clients on a monthly basis, giving you that advice. So none of our clients are going to have a large tax bill at the end of the year because we look at it. Now, this business owner on the phone today who made $500,000, who owes about, I don't know, I didn't look at his bookkeeping, but he said that he thinks he owes $50,000 to $100,000 in taxes, and now he has last year's numbers. It adds up. And guys, I want to tell you something. I had a client 2 years ago who was an event planner. She closed her business because she did not pay her taxes every single quarter, or at least every year. She was consistently behind because she did not have a bookkeeper. Now, she was making less than $150,000 annually, and she owed like $100,000 in taxes because of several years combined. Now, she had to close her business, and even at a minimum of making a payment plan to the IRS, she couldn't even afford that. So there are businesses that tell me, oh, I can't afford you because I'm not making enough money. What are you talking about? You need the service even more because you're not making enough money, because you may have a large tax bill at the end of the year that you may not even afford to pay, right? So nobody wants, let's say for that client, she paid, I think, $50K in 1 year and she didn't have the money. And then the next year it was another $50K and again, she didn't have the money. And the next year it added up and she really needed to close her business. I had a real estate agent as well who made, I don't know exactly how much, but she had a huge tax bill, approximately $150,000 to $200,000. And she estimated her numbers, did the bookkeeping herself, thinking that she's going to save money. She ended up owing so much money to the IRS. I believe she even got audited because she estimated her bookkeeping. And now she owes all this money and she had to close her business. What are the reasons why people close their business? And what are the reasons why people, they have a large tax bill? Is mainly because you don't do the bookkeeping on a monthly basis. And it's mainly because nobody's looking at it from a financial perspective, letting you know how much taxes you owe every single quarter. So estimated tax payments is one of the most important things that businesses need to really do to make sure that they're always current with their taxes, right? The next thing, I had another client I spoke to yesterday, and she thought that I was selling her last year. She's a dance studio, and I said, listen, this is my service. I offer monthly bookkeeping, payroll, sales tax, corporate returns, individual returns. She was making about $150,000 annually, and she said, nah, I don't need it. I said, okay, let me know whenever you do. I never will sell you. This is what I need, and just let me know whenever you're ready. So yesterday, her and her husband get on the call, and she says, Rachel, I really regret not hiring you last year. And I said, why? Tell me, because I want to know, because this is how I'm able to help, everyone. And she goes, we're getting all these notices. We're always behind on payments. We owe, I think she owed like $20,000 to $30,000 in taxes. She's like, I can't keep up. It's just so much to do. She's behind on her bookkeeping for last year. She's behind on a few sales tax turns, even if she sold shoes, because she sells these like cap shoes or something in a dance studio. She's behind. She has to file 8 sales tax turns because she didn't even know that she needed it. She needs a sales tax certificate. She's getting all these notices from different departments. She also needs to file her 1099s, which she did not do yet. And she's behind on everything. So I tell her, now what would you like to do? Because I don't sell anybody. She says, I really need your services. And I said, okay, that's great. So, we signed her up and everything. But I don't, there are a lot of business owners that need the service, not because of the bookkeeping, but because, hey, Christian, but because we help you with, potential tax bills that you're not expecting, right? Or that you don't want to get a huge surprise of a tax bill that you did not expect. The other major mistake that we see is business owners not having tax planning calls with their accountants. So when our businesses, what we do is we schedule a call in October, November with all of our clients, and we say, okay, let's look at your profit and loss report. Let's be proactive and not reactive, right? Most CPA and accounting firms, what they do is they have a conversation with you in February, and the prior year is already history. You can't really do anything because the year has ended. But we have a call with all of our clients in October, November, and we say, okay, let's look at your profit and loss report. Let's look at your year-to-date numbers. What's your profit? What are your expenses? What do you need to pay off? What's your exact situation? What are your future goals? Do you have any children? Do you need to hire your kids? Where do you live? Do you rent? Do you own? Should we deduct a portion of your home? What about your utilities? What about is there anything? Are there any additional expenses that you need to pay for the future that maybe it would benefit you to just pay this year? Do you need to raise your salary? Do you need to pay yourself a bonus? Do you need to hire your wife? Do you need to hire your spouse? Whatever it is, we go through so many different options with the client. Even, do you need to, put your, invest into an IRA? What type of IRA would make sense for you, etc. So many different things that, so many different specific tax strategies that you're able to reduce your liability legally when you have that one phone call with an accountant that looks at your specific numbers and tells you exactly what you need to do to reduce your liability. Now, most clients are so pissed off right now when I get on the phone with them and they say, oh, my accountant didn't call me last year and that's it, I'm firing him. Or because they've been making so much money, and you need to have that call with them so you could reduce your liability. Now, like I said, I speak to about 7 to 10 businesses in a day, and they just can't stand that their CPAs are not being proactive. They're not getting the monthly reports. They're not getting the payroll, because when you're an S Corp, you're required to pay yourself a reasonable compensation. And back to my point where when we look at the profit and loss report, there's so many things that we look at. We look at, did you pay yourself a reasonable compensation? Should you take money out as a distribution? What are you selling? Are you selling now a tangible item? Did you start a side business? What is your net? Are you current with your estimated taxes? We ask 1,000 questions to make sure that our client is compliant in all areas of taxes, right? Not only bookkeeping. So when you hire a bookkeeping company, they're looking at it from a bookkeeping lens, right? When you hire an accountant, they don't care about your bookkeeping because you made the decision to hire a bookkeeping company, and the CPA would assume that you hired the right person, right? The CPA won't review the bookkeeping unless you specifically ask them to. Now, we had a bookkeeping company that is very reputable in the online space, and I am disgusted by the work. I'll tell you why. The accounts were not even reconciled. That is the basic thing, guys. Your accounts must be reconciled every single month. Your bank accounts, your credit card accounts, your merchant accounts, every single thing must be reconciled. If your accountant does not reconcile your books on a monthly basis, they should be fired, okay? You don't need a dummy to enter data entry stuff. You do not hire people like that. When you look for an accountant, you need somebody as a business advisor. I spoke to somebody yesterday, he got a workers' comp bill, and he sent it over to his accountant, and his accountant told him, I don't do workers' comp letters. I don't do that. Or I'm like, what? I mean, we answer workers' comp notices all the time, and it's just like payroll information. It's just basic information that we do that. Then I spoke to a prospect 2 days ago, and he goes, we made $2.3 million this year, and we may buy a home this year. Do you help with that? Do you, connect with the mortgage brokers and give all the proper documentation to the mortgage brokers to make sure that we get approved? And I didn't even think about that, but I've helped people buy houses, by giving them the proper documentation and advising them for 14 years now. And that's not something that I even told people, but yeah, we do help people with that. I had another client yesterday who needed a bank loan, and the banker asked for several documentation, such as a profit and loss report, a balance sheet, whatever. They asked for specific documentation. He asked, Rachel, can you help me with that? And I said, of course I can help you with that. We do so much for the business owner. We're the back office accounting firm, and if your accountant does not respond to you or gives you, and another thing, like I used to work for so many for top accounting firms, and what I used to see is the top partners used to give the work to interns, right? And that's why we see so many mistakes from like the very reputable CPA firms, because they're not going to do their job. The job is their hourly rate is like $250 to $300 an hour. They're not going to do the work. They're just going to review it in 3 minutes and send it out. And they normally delegate all the work to interns. We in our office, we don't do that. I have accountants. I have licensed enrolled agents in my office, and they're the ones that do the work, the bookkeeping, the payroll, the sales tax, etc. The other major tax mistake that we see is a lot of Amazon sellers are not compliant with Nexus. So if you have inventory in a specific state, you're required to register in that state because you have economic nexus in that state. Now, it varies based on the amount that you have, the amount of inventory. It varies on several things. So again, that's not something that you need to make a decision, because you could go to TaxJar and set up the sales tax, and you could do the registration online, but you need the advice, right? That is what you hire accountants for. Should I register or should I not? An accountant that has several years of experience is able to give you that, professional advice. Another thing, the client that I spoke to earlier today asked him, you have a bookkeeper on staff, which you're very happy with, which doesn't make any sense because he owes, $100,000 in taxes now. But I asked him, what about payroll? Are you paying yourself a reasonable salary? Because he was an S Corp. He's 100% owner of his company, and you're required to pay yourself a reasonable salary. He says, no, I don't have any payroll. And I said, okay, so now again, he said, I could just hire one of the payroll companies online and just do it. So I said, okay, what do you think your salary would be? He goes, maybe like $30,000 approximately. That should be my salary. And I said, no, again, you have a payroll company to do the work for you, but you need an accountant to tell you what payroll is reasonable, right? What payroll should it be? Because guys, the IRS will audit you for every little thing, and when they do, they'll go back to 3 years, and one minimal thing can trigger an audit. Whether you don't pay your taxes on time, whether you're on a payment plan, whether you lump numbers in one category. For example, marketing professionals. If you have $300,000 worth of marketing expenses, then you have a high risk of being audited, because that's a large expense under one category. Whether your bookkeeping is not accurate, or there's so many different things that could just trigger an audit. And the reason that you hire a professional company to do it all for you is for you to reduce the risks of audit, for them to help you save money in taxes. Those are my two main goals, and I tell this to every business owner that I speak to on a daily basis. It's not the data entry. You're not hiring me to do a robotic job. You're hiring me to look at the whole company as an overview and make sure you're compliant in every single area of tax. So bookkeeping, payroll, sales tax, corporate returns, individual returns, that is what you are hiring us for. And again, the guidance is the most important key in this whole thing, because if your accountant does not guide you, then you're really hiring a robotic company to do it for you, where there's no advice, right? So if you have any questions, let me know what your questions are. But it just bothers me that I speak to so many business owners on a daily basis, and a lot of them don't know that they don't have, everything in place, and they think that they do, but they don't. You're not supposed to have a tax bill at the end of the year. That is not supposed to happen. And if you do, that just means that you don't have the proper guidance, which is why you owe. And that client, if he spoke to me in October or November, I could have saved him at least $15,000 in taxes if I had that tax planning call in before the year ends. So now that he calls me, there's nothing. I mean, I'm just gonna review the QuickBooks, prepare the return, see if there's anything that we could do legally to reduce the liability. But there's not that much that you could do, especially after the year has ended, right? So tax planning is important, and you should do it every 3 months at least. Like now we're doing tax planning, now we're preparing returns, we're preparing corporate returns, individual returns. We're reviewing so many bookkeeping files that so many clients think it's done correctly and it's not. And you don't want to wait for an IRS audit to then just be shocked that you hired somebody incorrectly. I'll share one more really quick story for you. We had a contractor that hired us this week, and they make about, I think, $1.5 to $2 million approximately. They had 2 bookkeepers on staff, and they paid them about $30,000 to $40,000 annually. 2 bookkeepers, right? We looked at the books. They had a negative balance in one of the credit cards of $500,000, okay? That, to the bookkeeper, was kind of normal because she thought that the accountant is going to make the journal entry and adjust that. Absolutely wrong, right? So now the business owner is really pissed off. He goes to me, Rachel, I paid 2 bookkeepers, let's say about $60,000 to $70,000 annually, and what did I pay them for? And I'm like, I don't know. They walked in, they may have been playing games all day. I don't know what they were doing. You're the business owner, you hired them. They came in, he's like, they look like they were QuickBooks experts. One was like 65 years old. I'm so stupid that I hired her, he said to me. He's like, I should have just known that I should have hired a company to have everything, for them to take over everything. Guys, don't make that same mistake. You don't need to pay a bookkeeper of $40,000 annually or 2 bookkeepers that really do data entry for you. You would rather just have one company to do it all. And if you have any issues, like let's say if you hired us, you would say, okay, Empire Tax would be responsible. You get a notice, Empire Tax is responsible. You have a sales tax question, Empire Tax. Payroll, Empire Tax. Corporate returns, Empire Tax. Bookkeeping questions, Empire Tax. It's just so much easier to have one company help you with everything versus, okay, should I go to, you got an IRS notice. Should this go to the bookkeeper? Let me ask if the bookkeeper knows. That's a waste of time. Should I go to the year-end accountant? Let me see if the year-end accountant is available. And they're going to charge you $150 just for that consultation, and they don't know your year-end situation to really advise you what you're, specifically. They don't know how to advise you specifically. But it's so much better to hire one company that understands your specific monthly situation, that can give you specific advice to your situation, which is what I would want. I can't stand when people give me general advice. That's not what people want. Nobody wants general advice. I want specific advice that is specifically associated to me. So there's so many businesses that I speak to, and I'm probably going to do several lives. I'll try my best because I'm extremely, extremely busy with these calls. And when I have a cancellation, or when I have something, then I could, or if somebody wants to reschedule or whatever, I could always get on and give you a summary of the calls that I speak to and let you know what businesses are really suffering with. One of the biggest ones, like I said, is a tax bill at the end of the year. And then I'm telling you, it's so hard to catch up because now you're catching up with the prior year and this year. I had a dentist who owes so much money to the IRS, and he had his friend doing his bookkeeping. Guys, and he's like in his 50s or something. He owes a lot of money to the IRS, and he's like, really, he can't even pay our fees. He's really paying payroll, paying IRS taxes, paying the rent, and then boom, again, the same thing next month. And he probably overspent, he overspent on specific items that he did not even need. But when you have your tax bill there, you're more intentional about what you're spending your money on. So be intentional, be proactive, be intelligent about your decisions of who you as business owners are hiring, because at the end of the day, you are 100% responsible of who you hire. That client that I spoke to, the contractor, he is really regretting the decisions that he made by hiring 2 bookkeepers in-house, and now he's giving it all to us because he's just fed up. He's fed up of overpaying. He's fed up of like speaking to, multiple people and nothing getting done. He's just fed up. So don't be that business owner. Hire one company to be responsible for everything, where you speak to one point of contact at all times, and that's it. So if you have any questions, let me know. You could always message me on Facebook. I use it mainly for business. I have a full-time virtual assistant that responds to my Facebook messages, or you could email me at rachel@empiretaxusa.com. We prepare corporate returns, individual returns, and then we have CFO services, which is the monthly package. I have no cancellation fees. I have no contract. I have nothing, okay? This service is for businesses that desperately need it, and I am really the solution for most business owners, just for them to have that peace of mind, and they could really work full force on their business because the accounting is really being taken care of. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm here to help you, and have a great weekend, guys. Don't work too hard. Thank you. Bye.